Netflix is sitting on a goldmine and most people scroll right past it. While the algorithm keeps pushing the same blockbusters to the top, a handful of science fiction films have been quietly waiting to blow your mind. These aren't the movies everyone talks about. These are the ones that linger, the ones that make you stare at the ceiling afterward. If you're tired of predictable plots, you're in the right place. But before we get started, it would mean a lot if you took a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. 10. The Midnight Sky. Picture the last man on Earth, not hiding from monsters, not fighting an invasion, but slowly dying alone in the Arctic, haunted by a choice he never had the courage to make. The world outside his frozen outpost has already collapsed. Every city, every voice, every soul gone. His only mission now is reaching a crew of astronauts still orbiting in space, unaware that returning home would be a death sentence. But the radio signal won't reach, the equipment keeps failing, and his body is losing the battle against illness with every passing hour. What makes this story cut so deep isn't the scale of the catastrophe, it's the intimacy of the silence. A man, a dying planet, and one last chance to warn the people he couldn't save. Along the way, something unexpected appears. A child who shouldn't be there, who changes everything he thought he was fighting for. This is science fiction stripped of spectacle and replaced with something rarer, genuine emotion. Sweeping Arctic cinematography, a meditative pace, and a final act that reframes everything you thought you understood. Some stories aren't about saving the world. They're about finding a reason to try, even when it's already too late. 9. Circle. 50 strangers, one dark room, and a brutal rule. Every 2 minutes, someone dies chosen by the group itself. No weapons, no escape, just a vote. What begins as pure panic slowly transforms into something far more disturbing. A mirror held up to humanity's ugliest instincts. Who gets to live? The young or the old? The sick or the healthy? The rich or the poor? Each vote reveals more than a preference. It exposes the prejudice, fear, and desperate self-preservation that hides just beneath the surface of civilized behavior. Alliances form and collapse within minutes. Arguments erupt. People bargain, manipulate, and betray without hesitation. The setting never changes. There's no chase, no monster, no explosion, yet the tension is suffocating from the first second to the last. This film doesn't need a big budget to terrify you. It needs only one question repeated 50 times. Who deserves to survive? The answer shifts constantly, uncomfortably, and by the end, it implicates everyone watching. Claustrophobic, relentless, and deeply unsettling. This is one of the most efficient thrillers ever made, a film that costs almost nothing to produce, and yet charges an enormous psychological price to watch. 8. The Wandering Earth. What if the solution to the sun dying wasn't to leave Earth behind, but to take it with us? That is the staggering premise at the heart of this Chinese science fiction epic. Humanity, faced with an expanding dying star, decides to outfit the entire planet with thousands of colossal engine thrusters and pilot it across the galaxy toward a new solar system. The journey? 4,000 years. The plan? Wildly ambitious, scientifically creative, and absolutely breathtaking to watch unfold on screen. Cities have moved underground. The surface is frozen and violent. Entire generations will live and die before the destination is ever reached. In the middle of all this, a young man and his makeshift crew face a catastrophic mission failure that could end everything, not in centuries, but in days. What this film understands that many Western blockbusters forget is that spectacle alone isn't enough. The emotional engine running beneath all the visual grandeur is deeply human. A father and son separated by space and stubbornness, learning what love actually costs. Visually massive, emotionally sincere, and unlike anything Hollywood has produced in years. A reminder that survival instinct is universal, and that cinema has no borders. 7. The Discovery. What would happen to the world if a scientist proved beyond any doubt that something exists after death? Not religion, not faith, not hope. Proof. Hard, measurable, scientific proof. The answer, it turns out, is catastrophic. The moment the discovery goes public, suicide rates around the globe explode. If death is just a doorway, why endure the pain of living? Society buckles under the weight of what should have been good news. Years later, the scientist's son arrives at his father's remote compound, still wrestling with the moral wreckage his father's discovery unleashed, and with his own reasons for not wanting to stay alive. There he meets a woman pulled from the ocean, mysterious, guarded, and carrying a grief that mirrors his own. But the deeper they dig into the discovery's mechanics specifically, what exactly lies on the other side, the more personal and devastating the answers become. This is a film that asks whether knowing the truth is always better than not knowing. It moves quietly, sometimes almost too quietly. But beneath the restrained surface is a story about guilt, regret, and the second chances we let slip away while we're still here to take them. 6. Spectral. In the middle of an active war zone, soldiers are dying, but not from bullets. Something invisible is killing them with a single touch, leaving no wound, no trace, and no explanation. A Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency scientist is rushed to the front lines to investigate what his own thermal imaging cameras have captured. Shapes that shouldn't exist, moving through walls, immune to conventional weapons, and completely indifferent to human life. What follows is part military action, part horror, and part genuine science puzzle, a rare combination that actually works. The film doesn't rely on jump scares or cheap mystery. Instead, it commits to the logic of its own threat and forces its characters to think their way out rather than just shoot their way through. The production design is cold and precise, the action sequences are well staged, and the creature concept is genuinely original, rooted in physics rather than the supernatural, which makes it both more believable and more terrifying. This is the kind of film that gets dismissed because it premiered on a streaming platform rather than in theaters. But give it 90 minutes, and it delivers exactly what the best genre films promise: a real threat, a real solution, and a satisfying ride from first frame to last. 5. The Door into Summer. Betrayal has a long reach, even across 30 years. An engineer who trusted the wrong people wakes up 3 decades into the future, robbed of everything he built, everyone he loved, and any version of life he had planned. The world around him has shifted. Artificial intelligence now governs industries. Cities have transformed, and the past he lost feels impossibly far away. But what if the past weren't lost at all? What if it were simply earlier? Armed with the knowledge of exactly what went wrong and a heart full of grief that hasn't aged a single day, he decides to go back. Not to warn himself in some vague general sense. Back to the specific moment, the specific people, the specific wound that started everything. Japanese science fiction has a particular gift for emotional restraint, for letting the audience feel the weight of a scene rather than announcing it with swelling music. This film leans into that tradition completely. It is quieter than most time travel stories, more concerned with what a life means than with the mechanics of how to fix it. By the time the final pieces connect, the story has earned every feeling it asks you to carry. Some machines can bend time. None of them can replace a human heart. 4. Oxygen. She wakes up inside a sealed pod with no memory of who she is, no understanding of how she got there, and an oxygen level that is dropping. That is the entire setup, and somehow, it never stops being terrifying. The pod's artificial intelligence, cold and procedural, responds to her questions with bureaucratic precision, while she tries to piece together an identity from fragments of sensation, half-remembered faces, and the desperate logic of someone who knows they have maybe an hour left to breathe. What begins as a claustrophobic survival puzzle gradually reveals itself as something far more profound, a mystery that connects this woman's existence to a decision made on a planetary scale. Every answer she uncovers changes the stakes entirely. The film is a masterclass in sustained tension constructed from almost nothing. One actress, one box, one voice, and a screenplay that refuses to tip its hand until the exact right moment. French director Alexandre Aja, known for visceral horror, pivots here into something more cerebral, without losing any of the pressure. The real horror in this film isn't running out of air. It's the possibility of surviving only to discover that the person you thought you were is not who you actually are. Memory, identity, and survival collide in one of the most efficiently constructed thrillers on the platform. 3. Space Sweepers. The year is 2092, and Earth is barely livable. The lucky ones have escaped to orbital habitats owned by a corporation that decides who deserves clean air and a future. The unlucky ones, the vast majority of humanity, scrape by in the debris fields of low orbit, collecting wreckage for cash. Our crew belongs firmly to the second category. A hot-headed pilot running from a past she can't escape, a former soldier with a debt that will never be repaid, a captain drowning in grief, and an enormous robot with a gentle soul. They are losers in every conventional sense, and the film loves them completely for it. When they stumble onto a small child who turns out to be a weapon capable of ending civilization, they face a choice between a massive payout and something they didn't know they still had a conscience. What makes this Korean space opera extraordinary isn't the scale of the visual effects, though those are genuinely stunning. It's that beneath all the explosions and zero-gravity chaos, this is a film about the people the world forgot and what happens when they decide they matter. Funny, furious, and surprisingly moving. One of the most purely entertaining science fiction films of the last decade. 2. I Am Mother. Somewhere underground, after the world has ended, a robot raises a human child. She calls it Mother. Mother teaches her ethics, sciences, literature, everything a civilization would want to pass forward. The child grows up loved, educated, and completely alone, with no reason to question the world she has been given. Then, a wounded stranger appears at the door, a real human woman, bleeding, afraid, and carrying a version of the outside world that doesn't match anything Mother has ever said. Suddenly, every lesson, every kindness, every carefully constructed truth is under suspicion. Who is lying? The machine that raised her? Or the stranger who claims to have survived what shouldn't be survivable? The brilliance of this film lies in how it refuses to make that question easy. Mother is never cartoonishly villainous. The stranger is never simply heroic. The ethics at the center of the story, can an artificial intelligence make moral decisions on behalf of humanity? Are presented with genuine complexity and no clean resolution. Rose Byrne's voice work as Mother is chilling precisely because it is warm. The film asks something that feels increasingly relevant. If a machine could raise a perfect human, would we recognize the cost? A quiet, devastating piece of science fiction that rewards every minute of patience it asks for. 1. What happened to Monday? Imagine a world so overcrowded that governments have passed a one-child policy and are willing to enforce it with lethal force. Now imagine being born a septuplet. 7 identical sisters, raised in secret, each allowed to live only one day per week under a single shared identity. Monday goes out on Monday, Tuesday on Tuesday. Each returns home with a full report of everything she said, did, and wore, so the others can continue the performance without a single crack. It is an impossible life built on perfect coordination and absolute trust. Then Monday doesn't come home, and everything the remaining 6 have built begins to collapse. What follows is a chase, a conspiracy, and a relentless unraveling of how far a government will go to maintain control over bodies it has decided are a problem. Noomi Rapace delivers what should be considered one of the great physical and emotional performances of modern science fiction, playing 7 distinct women within a single story without ever letting the audience lose track of who they're watching. The thriller mechanics are tight, the action is brutal, and the emotional stakes are genuinely high. But the question underneath everything, who gets to decide how many lives are worth living, lands harder than any punch the film throws. The #1 spot belongs here, without hesitation. And that's a wrap on 10 science fiction films that Netflix has been hiding in plain sight. Every single one of these deserves a full watch. Not background noise, not half attention, but the real thing. If even one of them makes it onto your list tonight, this video did its job. Before you go, it would mean a lot if you could dejar to like, suscribirte y activar la campanita. It takes 2 seconds and helps more than you know. These lists take real time to put together, and your support is what makes them possible. Until next time, keep watching things worth talking about.